Hello guys, how are we doing and welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be solely focused on becoming a better assault rifle player within Black Ops 6 and more specifically Black Ops 6 ranked play. I've been fortunate enough to hit the max rank in several Call of Duties now, and Black Ops 6 luckily is no different. I've managed to hit Iridescent in Season 1, and a lot of the time I do find myself using the assault rifle of choice, in which case in this game is the AMES or the AIMS, however you want to say it. Now, whether you are an SMG player looking to switch up your role or an AR player simply looking to get better, this video is going to be for you. As I say, I use these tips and tricks all the time. I use them in the past. I'm going to continue to use them going forward. And I'm hoping that following today's video, you're going to improve one way, shape or form with the AR. We're going to cover some general tips and then some some mode-specific tips. So we're going to go hardpoint, S&D, and control at the end. So enjoy the gameplay in the background. Okay, as I say, uses a lot of these tips as well. So tip number one is when you have the chance to pick up an SMG, pick up the SMG. I see a lot of people who, with an they play as an AR, but when they're maneuvering around the map, they're having to switch to their pistol to get that versatile close-range engagements because the AR can just be a little bit too sluggish. Whereas for those of you who are picking up the SMG, you'll notice in my gameplays I do it a lot. I pick up the SMG just to have in my back pocket as almost a secondary, that if I find myself in a little bit of a close quarter situation, I can simply pull it out. And being able to be versatile and not going, I'm the AR, I have to be doing this thing, blah, 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 blah. Having the SMG in your pocket just means you can roam around a little bit more and not be quite so rigid in the gameplays you're making. So that's a super easy tip, and it's obviously, I'm going to assume you haven't done that in a lot of these ones coming up. The second tip is something I see a lot of people fail to do quite considerably, and it's take on gunfights at ranges you will win and use the environment around you. Okay, so I see a lot of people when they're taking routes. I don't know if some of you saw my recent out with Harrz. A lot of people with an AR I see take routes where if you come across a submachine gun at that range, you're going to lose that gunfight. So wherever you push around the map, whatever lanes you decide to take to maneuver around the map, you need to make sure that you're going to win them gunfights. The ranges you're likely to see people, obviously you can't control everything, the ranges you're likely to come across enemies, give yourself the advantage, okay? And that sort of goes without saying as well, that as you are traversing around the map, as you are moving around the map to get a better position, you're going from cover to cover, you're going from head glitch to head glitch, so that if you do happen to come across an enemy, you are well prepared and you've got cover, and it makes it more of a 70-30 gunfight than a 50-50 would be if you were coming across someone and it was a little bit of a surprise. So yeah, first two tips, super simple. Pull out the SMG if you need to, and then take gunfights on at the range you should be with an AR. Another thing which I find is a really important general tip for AR users is to not sprint too much. I see so many people run around with the AMES as if they were using the Jackal, which is a really mobile gun, and what happens is when they're running, they get caught against someone with a sub, they're able to pull their gun up quicker, and they just die as a result. So as an AR, maybe just slow it down. If you're struggling, you feel like you're just dying, and you're just not expecting people, slow it down, pre-aim a little bit more, and that's going to be a real easy way you can just transition from dying a lot and getting caught off guard to expecting people. What will happen is at first you'll probably start pre-aiming things that you simply don't need to pre-aim, but after you get into the notice and find out the patterns that you come across quite frequently, you're going to be able to pre-aim the right things and get the right kills without even having to pull your gun up, because you're already going to be ADS. So yeah, slow it down, you'll find it a lot easier. Another thing that people often find comes with the AR role is being the in-game leader. And in order to be an in-game leader, you need to have good communication skills and a bunch of other things like spawn knowledge and map knowledge, blah, 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 blah. But you often find people who are a slow-paced AR player takes in the in-game leader role, commands a team, studies the way of traffic and sort of looks where the enemies are spawning and communicates that. That is essential if you want to be a really good AR. The reason it normally sits with the AR player is because a lot of the time, when you're a submachine gun player, you're in the mix, you're running it down, it's go, 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 and you don't really have a lot of time to look at the minimap and take a couple of seconds to analyze the game map and say what's happening here, where are the enemies spawning, so on and so forth, which is why, again, it often falls to an AR who might just be trying to block. And yeah, they're the general tips. Okay, there's some general tips, but we're now going to get onto some some mode-specific ones. We're going to be starting off at Hardpoint. Now, the first thing that is really important on Hardpoint, and it sort of does replicate itself in Control and S&D as well, but you want to be able to hold positions to enable your teammates to push up. So you'll see here, this is an example on Vault, where the red team are struggling to get across to P4. And you can see here the blue team have got a really solid setup here, not allowing the team to get across. So as an AR, it's your job to take out the people overlooking. Allow your subs to feed on through past you as you're taking out the ARs who are cutting the lines. You should be able to open the map up for the rest of your team to get across where they need to be. So that's one way on Hardpoint you can be really effective as an AR, okay? And that's what you need to do to support the team. The next thing is something I don't see people do enough, and a lot of people have the misconception that because you've got an AR, you don't need to be in the hill. The subs should own the hills. There's a lot of hills in this map where it's actually more beneficial to have the AR on it, because every line of sight out of the hill is long range. So it makes sense to just have an AR so the enemies can't even get close to the hill. Take P2 on Hacienda, for example. You can sit garage quite easily looking either at the rock or in the spawn, and whichever way you face, it's a bloody long line of sight. So you're much better off having an AR on that hill because they can defend it a little bit more effectively from that hill rather than have an SMG who's there trying to defeat ARs at a long range who can see into you. So yeah, fairly self-explanatory, but I don't see enough people sit on the hill with an AR. Next thing, which is probably a really important thing here, is blocking the spawns if it's easier to do so with an AR, should be done with an AR. In order to do this, obviously you need to know map control, you need to know spawn control and things like that. Assuming you do, let's take red card here. P2's active, and you want to keep the blue team from spawning out. You don't want them spawning behind you. Keep them spawning in the back where you can see those blue rings. In order for your team to effectively hold those spawns, you need an AR sat quite far back. You need a player sat quite far back where you've got this player here who's on stage, where you can see all the arrows coming from. And that player will be blocking the spawn. But if that player had an SMG, you can see the lines of sights they're going to be taking enemies on. That's a really long-range gunfight they're going to be taking here, which is why you often find the AR being the ones blocking the spawns. Let's take another example here on Skyline. P3, you really want to keep the right-hand side spawns for P4. And there's 4 places there you can block the spawns from. But you can also see there's every single line of sight from that spawn block player is a long-range line of sight. And it's often more effective to have an impact across the map whilst blocking with an AR rather than a sub. Now, I'm not saying if you're a sub, you shouldn't block at all. I just think that if you're an AR, you should have a little bit more consciousness when you are blocking. If your teammate with an SMG spawns behind you, you can say, right, you go, I'll cover you to the objective while I sit back and block. And that's how you can really use those last 2 points together, or last 3 points together, to get really good holds of Hardpoint. Another interesting thing is how to cut the map. Now, cutting the map obviously requires you to know where the enemy's coming from and where they need to be. So let's take this example here on, again, Skyline. The enemies are spawning piano in that little red ring. They have to run across either catwalk or across the pool or go all the way under to get to P4, which is on the right-hand side. Now, as an AR, a real nice position for you to be in is up on this kitchen counter here, looking across the entire first floor of the map. That enables your team to, that's essentially cutting the map, okay? You're cutting a real long line of sight across the map. And essentially means that all your team then has to do is make sure they can't come bottom or top, because you've got the whole of that mid-cross. And even if you don't manage to kill people, you can at least get them a little bit weak and communicate that they're coming. Another example of cutting the map again is on P2 Vault, where the enemies are spawning like P4 sort of side or book sort of side, and they have to run past the swimming pool to get to P2. You can have an AR sat at the bottom catwalk just watching that cross, and that's essentially how you should be playing and how you should be cutting the map off with an AR if you can. Now, obviously, in order for a lot of the things I've just mentioned above to work, you need to understand how positioning influences spawns. You need to try and understand how where your teammates are determines where your enemies are spawning, and where you spawn determines where the enemies must be for you to have spawned there. And the only way to understand spawns is to study them, okay? I've done several spawn guides, I've done map breakdowns on Hardpoint, which should hopefully help you out. So if this is your first video of the channel, first of all, welcome, but I very much advise you to check out previous videos where I focus on Hardpoint, because I do talk about spawns a lot, and it's real nice, and enables you to do all of the other things, as I said, to become that really good, solid AR player. Now, looking at S&D, S&D is a similar thing. You can also cut the map on S&D. Now, cutting the map on S&D is more so that you can narrow down where the enemy can be, because at the end of the day, people play a little bit quiet, or a little bit creddy, as people say, in S&D, and knowing where they're not tells you where they could be. So, for example, here, Protocol, an AR player can literally sit top P3, looking across the entire top half of the map, essentially meaning that if enemies want to get to B, they've either got to go around all the way boat or all the way underneath. So cutting that map off and being able to communicate to your team that no one's top, no one's top, no one's top can enable your teammates to go, okay, they must be coming left or under, and it just gives them that little bit of information to, you know, give them the win. Similarly, on red card here, you can take up two positions. You can either go top window, as you can see the top player, the blue arrow is in the middle of the screen. You can see there's a player who's sat on the A-bomb itself. And from here, you can see the entire right-hand side of the map. You can see if anyone's channeling through hedges. You can see if anybody's channeling through the stage area. And seeing people is great, but not seeing people is also really valid information. Because if you get to one of these positions and you can't see a soul, that tells you, and you can communicate this to the rest of your team, that they're either challenging through middle, or they're still in spawn, or they're going left. Okay, so it enables your teammates to work off you because you've cut the map off. Now, it's even more effective if you're in a 2v1 situation and you know where the last player on the map is in the enemy team. All you need to do is hold a line of sight that blocks them from going where they are to where they need to be. And if they cross that line of sight, you know where they are, and then you can sort of follow them. And that's a really nice way of how to cut the map. In S&D, the AR should support the bomb plant as well as stopping the defuse. Okay, there's a real nice advantage to having an AR in that you really want the submachine gunner to be the one planting the bomb, because it makes a little bit more sense. You can cover a little bit more of an area with an AR, but it doesn't really matter. The more important bit here is when the bomb is planted, the AR should get as far away as possible so that they can still see the bomb, but they're in a real weird position. And knowing your bomb plant spots and knowing where you can see diffusers from is a real strong point here. And again, you might need to take a little bit of studying to get to that knowledge. But for example, here you can see on Hacienda, it's a 1v2 situation. Bombs down on B, but this player here who's defending the diffuser, is trying to stop a diffuse from happening, is sat top office. They literally can lay down behind the desk in office, peek every 5 seconds or so to check if anyone's on it, and then just really play their life. And you wouldn't be able to do that, or at least you'd struggle to do that with an SMG, which is why it's really beneficial to try and do that with an AR. Similarly, on Skyline here, 2v1 situation, the players managed to plant the bomb at A, but they've got all the way back to their spawn. And again, checking that spot, checking that line of sight, not all the time, you don't have to be constantly sat there watching it, but every 5 to 7.5 seconds, because it's a 7.5 second diffuse, is an ideal time frame to check it, so that you know if anyone's on it. And at the end of the day, it's going to be one of their last places they check because of how far away you are and how little time they have left to defuse. Moving on to control now. Again, similar to Hardpoint, you've really got to try and hold positions to enable your teammates to push up. So as we said on Vault, where you want to try and make sure that your enemies can get across to P4 from P1 pool area, it's just the sort of same logic here. So if you take this example on Protocol, obviously your teammates need to get to the objectives. You've got the B point on the boat or just next to the boat, and you've got the A point on the main turret. The AR's role is to make sure that that area of the map is open from anyone looking over it. So you can then send the rest of your team, whether it's a submachine gun or another AR player, to get on that objective. And if you're there first, holding a position where you can see all lines of sight, for example, at the top there, this player can see if they're coming P2, top mid or top lip, or even underneath. Having that player there and holding that really strong position can enable the player who's just coming from bottom zip to funnel in behind them, knowing it's a clear entrance. And then once enough people have funneled through, the AR player can pretty much sit there and just pick off kills as they appear. And that's a real strength in solid ARs, is that they literally hold the position to enable the teammates to push up, and they support their submachine gunners to get to places they otherwise couldn't because they're getting beamed by ARs. Obviously, cutting the map also applies to control, but the extra added benefit of having people cut the map effectively in control is that you can spawn trap. Okay, so again, don't forget, cut the map means you are looking at a line of sight between where the enemies are spawning and where they need to be. So let's take this example on Vault, where I'm taking the view of the player at the very top there, who's on one of the palm tree headies. They know the player is spawning in their spawn, but having this player here watching the cut of the map essentially basically forces the enemies to take a little bit of a devious route through middle or through pool itself, because this player here can see the entire push linear from their spawn to the current objective. Again, you can have a look on Protocol here. Whilst not only for defending but for attacking, this works perfectly. But you can see there's a player on the mid gun with that orange arrow coming from them. teammates are on the point. You've got a teammate pushed up a little bit into P2, but the player on the gun is cutting them out. They're essentially making sure that any players who come off the enemy spawn and tries to challenge top or tries to challenge tower, that player has the entire cut of that, allowing the other three teammates to focus on P2 push or bottom. And having now a player that is happy to sit there and not kill whore, but is to happy to sit there, maybe not see too many people, but if they see a person and they can guarantee an enemy is not coming from top mid, say on this example, that's a real nice asset to have as a team member. And again, finally, on control, you need to understand how position influence spawns. You need to know if my teammates are pushing here and I push here, this is where they spawn. Control's a little bit easier than Hardpoint, but again, I've got super, really useful guides on the channel for control spawns, which you will find useful and are probably a little bit easier to learn than Hardpoint. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you found it useful. If you have any feedback, let me know down below. And if you have any questions, let me know down below. DM me on X or Twitter, or you can message out on Discord. Enjoy the rest of your day. See you in the next one. Ciao for now.
Hardpoint located. Hardpoint active. Hardpoint locked down. Hostiles have captured the hardpoint. Hardpoint is secure. Hostiles have the hardpoint. Hardpoint locked down. The lead is ours. Hardpoint identified. All units prepare for exfil.
What a comeback.
This one's ours.
What a comeback.
Are on the run. Solid job, Crimson.
Jimmo's going huge here. What on earth? What a comeback. Oh, that's not going to count, is it?